everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Brittany and I go through the tools and systems marketed to photographers. And then together we break them down to see what works and what might be a waste of your time. If that sounds helpful, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. So whenever I search top client gallery providers of 2025, one of the first results I see is a listicle from a site called Picflow. Now, the funny thing to me is that Picflow is actually a client gallery management and sharing system itself, and they also list themselves first on their own list. So this article is essentially a search engine booster for them, and I would say that since they do show up near the top of results, it's a pretty dang good one, and a very smart move from their marketing department. But because I don't outright trust what a company or brand is selling ever, I don't really pay much attention to the breakdowns of the companies listed. I just take note of their names and dive into them myself, which has led me to look a bit more into Picflow. And what I found was a pretty unique system for client galleries and proofing. And while I'm sure any photography genre could make use of Picflow, they're more so designed for photographers that do high-end commercial, portraits, or fashion work. Mainly because they don't provide print shop services or studio management options. They really focus heavily on collaboration between photographer and client with their feedback-centered interface that has the potential to cut down on the need for lengthy, traditional back and forth email communication. Picflow does offer an always free tier, which is what we'll be using today because free equals great for testing. And there's also some paid tiers that, when billed annually, scale in pricing from $12 a month for Plus, $18 for Pro, and $149 for Biz, which, damn. Solutions are a lot of money, so that makes sense. What I want to do with Picflow is test the system in a way I'd actually use it as a photographer. I have marketing images of an event that I need to deliver to a client, so I'm gonna upload that gallery, set it up in the way I need for delivery, share it, and get feedback from my client on my quest for final approval. Pretty easy stuff. And of course, I'll be sharing my thoughts along the way of the entire process, finishing it all off with my experience rating that is personal to me. You very well might try this system out and come out with a different rating, and that is all fine and dandy. Let me know how it all goes for you in the comments. First things first, on initial login, the interface is simple, clean, and gets right to business. There are not really many places for me to look, and I'm just gonna go ahead and start creating my gallery, which I found extremely easy to do. It's a really modern interface where changes happen instantaneously, making any decision-making with things like theming and settings very intuitive. The upload process did take about 7 or 8 minutes for my 50 images, which does feel a little long, but during that time I was able to work through the various customizations for my gallery, which aren't terribly extensive, but they don't feel limiting either. They offer what I feel is the right amount of options. Plus, by the time I was in a happy space with my gallery look, my upload was just about finished. Of course, because I am using the free version, some elements are locked to me, like theme saving, so if I were to set up another gallery, I'd have to make all these decisions again. And honestly, I probably would just opt for an already made theme anyway and skip the customizations until I either invest or decide to move on, at which point I don't need to make any more decisions here. All of the themes are really nice and present a professional initial impression for the client, so there's really not much to be worried over with this initial setup. Outside of the gallery setup area, there's also a workflow tab where we can pre-mark and leave comments on images prior to sending them to the client. But I'm really eager to get this shared, and once we get our link sent out, the collaboration element of Picflow kicks in. Within this workflow area is where we as the photographer, as well as our client, have the ability to mark favorites, approve images, comment on the photos, both in a general sense, as well as mark specific areas for comment. There's the ability to draw on the image along with some different options for colors and shapes, as well as leave a comment explaining what was marked. I find the drawing element to be super handy, and I definitely had an unreasonable amount of fun with it. I know some clients may take the ability to mark images a little too far, so I'm sending well wishes to all the photographers out there that your clients always use this power for good. The system does update instantaneously for all users, so communication isn't delayed, and because the system also alerts us to new activities when our client does anything on a photo, we can stay on top of responses and requests. I really like the toggle for new activities because it immediately shows us the images that have something important happening on them. It's direct, and to me, this acts as a visual checklist of what images to focus on. There is also a gallery activity button that shows us everything that's been going on with the gallery. Honestly, the gallery activity tab is probably something I'd constantly mark as read, even if I haven't read everything, just so I can clear the counter that lingers after closing the drawer. There is the ability to unsubscribe from the gallery activity, which I'm making an educated guess just stops alerting us to gallery activity. I tried it out by unsubbing, but then I couldn't resub at all. No matter what I clicked, checked, or refreshed, nothing could get me resubbed back to the gallery activity dropdown. And even though I'm not fully aware of what unsubbing does, I sort of miss being subbed to it already. It's a real you never know what you got until it's gone moment. Since I'm on the topic of system hiccups, another one that I found was with the drawing feature. Whenever the drawing function is used on the right side of an image, the marker to indicate who made the drawing and give a general idea of where it appears is in the wrong area of the image. If the drawing is made on the left side or down the center, it works as intended, but as soon as it falls on the right side, the indicator goes a little spacey. Now, if the pin is selected, the correct area for the drawing is shown, so we don't have to rely on the drop pin to show us what needs editing. The drawing does appear correctly. It's just a little visually confusing with the pin drops. The next goof I hit was on the client side in the workspace contact sheet view. When the client hovers over an image and clicks the favorite icon, it does favorite the image, but the icon doesn't fill in or change color. So there's no visual feedback for our client. Because the icon stays gray and looks unfavorited, clicking it again does nothing. The client can't unfavorite from this view. The only workaround is clicking into the full image view and then hitting the favorite icon there. On the photographer side, it works as intended. Click the favorite and the icon fills red, click again to unfavorite and it goes back to gray. It also works for clients when in layout view, but within that workflow tab in the contact sheet view, the button only works one way. Hopefully this little bug and the others can get worked out in an update, and I will be sending them a message about these items, so hopefully when I check back in, I can make an update that they're fixed. Regardless of those little anomalies, I find this system really fun to interact with, and taking everything into consideration that I looked at, I would give it a 4 out of 5. It's a modern, reasonably priced, innovative system with plenty of customer support options and product transparency that's very simple to get in the groove of using. The reason I deducted any amount of pointage was because some of the quirks mismark areas and impact the client's experience in a spot or two, which could lead to some confusion. It's definitely different from most other client gallery systems I've looked at, mainly because it doesn't feature a shop at all. So if you're someone that focuses on making a passive income from selling prints and wall art, Picflow isn't going to be the system for you, unfortunately. However, if you do real estate, fashion, editorial, interior, prop styling, etc., this might be a system you'll want to give a little trial run to see if it could improve your editing and gallery workflow and client collaboration. While every client gallery system, of course, centers around the gallery service, Picflow's heavy focus on collaboration really makes them a different kind of force. For me, I haven't dabbled much in systems that are similar to Picflow, so please, if you know of other providers that do this type of collaborating between photographers and clients, leave their names in the comments so I can check them out. At the moment though, because I don't have another system in my memory that's like them, making direct comparisons to other systems like Picflow does on their blog and in their comparison articles feels a bit apples to oranges. And I want to touch on this real quick. I totally get why Picflow publishes all those articles on their site, where they are making direct comparisons to other galleries. When established platforms have been building their authority and just taking over search results for years, a newer or smaller company needs to show up in those same searches to even get discovered in the Google sphere. And I think the beauty of this Picflow SEO arc is that by positioning themselves in the same arena as those other platforms that have a ton of features but are very different from Picflow, they get in front of a whole new audience. And within that audience might be someone who's currently using a legacy system that just isn't working for them. And they might be looking to switch to something a little more specialized. Because Picflow is making direct comparisons in a professional, honest, and well laid out manner, they get a big boost in traffic. Now, is that turning into conversions? I don't know. But they're leveling up their search results, and this strategy is honestly why I find rankings and optimization so freaking interesting and cool. And with my little spiel on internet neatness complete, that wraps up my experience with Picflow. I know there may be something you were curious about that I didn't cover, and if that's happened, I hope you can take this video and use it as a map to plot out your own adventure in the system. They do have that always free tier, so get in there and take your time figuring out if this provider might come in first for you. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you had a good time looking through this system with me, I hope you'll consider liking, subscribing, and hitting that bell so you can be the first to know when I release something new. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.